Now that you've learned so much about algebra and translations and solving equations, we're getting into the real meat of algebra. This is what algebra is all about. You have real life situations, and you use your ability to translate to take those situations and put them into an algebraic equation. And in following all the rules of algebra, you can then solve the equation, which will then tell you the answer of your situation. A lot of times, well, the reason that you would use this in real life is because it's a way to organize the information to get the answer. You wouldn't use it if you could just figure out the answer in your head, obviously. It's because you're struggling to figure it out. There's a lot of information. It has to be organized. And so you can lay it out like this, translate it into math, and then solve it, and then you have the answer. In fact, I genuinely do this. I have done this even before I became a teacher. It was just an instinct because I couldn't quite get it, but I knew things like of means times, and then I could set it, especially with percent and finding percent of a number. I could just follow the formula, and I would just say to myself, 6% of 8 is, and then I would translate those words into math. And I didn't even have to think. I would just translate the exact words into exact math, and then I could get the answer. And so that's the whole point of all this. And we are just finally beginning to do that. We'll do 1 and 2 together. Both of them, actually. I won't have you do any on your own quite yet, but you will. The first thing that you always will need to do after you read the problem is decide what your variable represents. You're going to have to label it. When I read the problem, what I did was I highlighted the question because that tells you the piece of information that you're looking for that you don't have, and that will help you decide what your variable needs to be. So let's read this. The sum of 3 consecutive numbers is 75. What is the smallest of these numbers? Now tell me if you can just sit there and figure it out in your head. You could probably eventually figure it out. I mean, you could just by process of elimination. Take 3 numbers, add them up. Nope. Take 3 more numbers, add them up. Nope. In case you weren't sure, consecutive numbers are just numbers that are in order. 3 examples. 15, 16, 17. Those are 3 consecutive numbers. 129, 130, 131. They're consecutive. 4, 5, and 6 are consecutive. In fact, you could even have negative numbers. So let me give you that example. You could have negative 5, let me write this neatly. You could have negative 5, negative 4, negative 3. Anything, you can have them. So when we talk about 3 consecutive numbers, it's 3 numbers that are in order together, and they add up to 75. Now, understanding what consecutive means. Now, can you just figure that out easily? Probably not. It could probably take a long time. But if we take this and we turn it into math, then we got it. The question is, what is the smallest number? So we don't want to know all 3, we just want to know the smallest number. But when you know the smallest number, then you know all 3 because they're consecutive. So, because we want to know what the smallest number is, n is going to represent the smallest number. So what will my equation be? The sum that tells me I'm adding of 3 consecutive numbers. Well, if the smallest number is n, then the next number that we add to it is going to be n plus 1, because it's going to be 1 bigger than n. And then the next number will be 2 bigger than n. So whatever n is, these are going to come after it. So if this is 10, this will be 11, and this will be 12. If this is 99, this will be 100, 101. This is 1,496, this will be 1,497, 1,498. Doesn't matter, but this formula makes sure that this number comes before this number, comes before this number. Now, so I'm adding the 3 numbers. The sum of 3 consecutive numbers, so I'm adding them, is, here's my is, 75. Solve below. So I have 1, 2, 3 n's. I don't have to distribute because it's all adding. I have 3 n's, so 3n plus 3 equals 75. Now I will isolate the variable term, which means that I need to subtract 3 from both sides. That cancels out, and I have 3n equals 72. I'm going to rewrite this over here. 3n equals 72. Now it's time to isolate just the variable. So I will undo the times 3 by dividing by 3. I'm left with n equals 72 divided by 3. I'm going to do that in my head. 3 goes into 7 2 times with 1 left over. That's 12. 24. Now, let's see. Is it true that, well, let's see. So 24 is the first number. 24 plus 1, so 25 is the second number. 24 plus 2 is 26. Let's see if we add these all up, if we get 75. 9 plus 6 is 15. 2, 4, 6, 7, 7. Sure enough, we figured out the numbers. They are 24, 25, and 26. Now, I need to identify the smallest number. The smallest number is 24. Always be careful when you solve these equations that you actually answer the question that's being asked. So, 24. Number 2. James won 30 tickets at the fair. He gave 2 tickets to each friend. He only has 10 tickets left. How many friends does he have? Okay, so how many friends does he have? So that tells me that we're trying to find out the number of friends. So F will represent number of friends. So he won 30 tickets. He gave 2 per friend. And then he had 10 tickets left. Okay, so 30 tickets. If he gives away the tickets, we're taking away. He's gonna give these away, give these away, give these away. Each friend gets 2, right? So we're gonna multiply 2 times each friend. So he gives away 2 for each friend. So if you have 3 friends, 3 times 2, he gives away 6. If you have 10 friends, 10 times 2, he gives away 20. So these are the tickets he gives away. And then afterward, he has 10 tickets left. So he starts with 30 tickets. He gives away 2 tickets for friend, and then he has 10 left. There's our equation. Let's solve it below. First thing we'll do is isolate the variable term. So since 30 is positive, we'll subtract 30 from both sides. So then I'm left with negative, don't forget that negative, that's important, negative 2f equals 10 minus 30 is negative 20. I was thinking ahead. Don't worry, your variable won't be negative when you finish, after this step rather. Right now we're multiplying it by negative 2. In order to get the variable by itself, we will divide by negative 2. That cancels out, no more negative 2. Now we have f equals negative 20 divided by negative 2 is 10. So, see below, James shared with 10 friends. And let's make sure, does that make sense? If he gave each friend 2 tickets, he has 10 friends. That means he gave away 20 tickets. He started off with 30. He gave away 20. That leaves him with 10. So there you have it. Before we begin the first part, let me qualify this and say that this is a 2-part assignment. Today we'll do the first part. The only thing you'll do today is to match up all of these equations with these word problems. You are translating the word problems into equations. You will not solve them yet. That's next time. That would take a really long time to do all of this at once. So we're breaking it into 2 parts. What did the math teacher say after spending 8 hours in ice and snow? Or, I feel invigorated now. Let's go do some math. Because, you know, cold is supposed to give you energy. If it doesn't take all your energy just trying to your body keep warm. Did she have a jacket on? Did she have boots, gloves, a hat? How was she clothed? That makes a difference. If she was wearing a swimsuit, then, she might not even survive that 8 hours. But if she's all cuddled up, she's got a sled, she's probably having a great time. So I guess it depends. I guess we'll find out when we finish this, and then we can discover whether it was a good thing or a bad thing that she spent out in the snow. Maybe she was playing and having fun. I like these. I think this is a really good way to get into translating words to actual equations. Real situations. These aren't just what is 4 more than 9 less than a number. These are real life situations. And we're taking these and we're turning them into math. And we're able to solve them that way. The nice thing about this format is that you don't have to completely come up with it off the top of your head. You've got choices. So if you kind of sort of have an idea, but not completely certain, then you can look at your choices and then see, and oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I understand. So, if you don't know enough, then this isn't enough to help you. If you know too much, then you don't need this. I feel like we are right there in between, and we are getting to the point where we don't need this. But first, we need this to not need it. So, boom. All right, number 1. A set of 8 desert. I'm thinking of snow, because after I go in the snow, I'm going to want to be in the desert. A set of 8 dessert dishes costs $20. What was the cost of each dish? I was going to use a D, but I see on this page they used all X's, so I'm going to use X. So 8 times each dish is $20. Like that. So $8 per dish, but we don't know how many dishes, equals $20. I don't need $. You don't need the dollar sign when you're doing equations. You need it in your final answer, but you don't need it in the actual math part. So 8x equals 20. Let's look and make sure, because I think you're going to want to do it. I think you're going to want to do this where you look at it and then go check. So let's make sure we got this right. 8x equals 20. Did I miss it? Oh, here it is, B. All right, so 1 is B. I'm just gonna go ahead and write it over here. All right, now move down to 4. On first down, a football team had a loss of 8 yards. After 2 downs, the team had an overall gain of 20 downs. How many yards were gained on second down? So they started off with negative 8 yards because it was a loss of 8 yards. And then they gained some so they gained some. We don't know how much. They gained some so that they had an overall gain of 20. So they started off with a loss of 8. They gained some, and now they have 20. Let's see if we can find this. Negative 8 plus x could be x minus 8. Oh, it is negative 8 plus x. I just put it in the same order as the wording U. Number 4 is U. Number 5. After she wrote a check for $240, so she wrote a check, that means she bought something. That means she spent money, so they're taking money out of her account, so it'll be minus 240. May Bounce had a balance. Why does she say bounce? It makes me think bounce her check, because she has a checking account balance of negative 6. She didn't have enough money for that check. May Bounce had a balance in her checking account of negative $6. What was her balance before she wrote the check? Her balance was obviously less than 240 because she didn't have enough money. So she starts with an amount. She starts with some amount because we want to know what was her balance before she wrote the check. So this is her balance before she wrote the check. Then she writes the check. So she spends $240. I keep putting my dollar signs in this. You don't need that. And then after she writes that check, her final balance is negative 6. So x minus 240 is negative 6. This is what she starts with, this is what she spends, and this is what she has afterward. So x minus 240 equals negative 6. Oh, I went right to it this time. Hee hee. That was I. Number 6. A bank of 8 floodlights together use a bank of 8 floodlights. I don't know what that means. A bunch of floodlights, which are big lights, together use 1,000 watts of power. How much power is used in each bulb? Boy, I don't like using X. I want to use F for floodlights. Okay, 8 floodlights together use, okay, so all of them use, so all 8 floodlights use 1,000. So it's all 8. So 8 times X. X is how many floodlights, how many bulbs. 8 times the number of bulbs equals 1,000. So when we solve this, then we'll know how many bulbs. 8x equals 1,000. Oh, yippee. Number 8. Oh, I'm hungry. A strawberry pie is divided, A strawberry pie is divided into 6 equal parts. Each slice has 240 calories. How many calories are in the whole pie? I see the word divided. That must mean I divide. Actually, you don't. You just think about it. So basically, you've got the pie, and the pie has 6 pieces. There are 6 pieces, or 6 slices of pie. The whole pie we'll call X. The whole pie has a whole bunch of calories. It's divided into 6 parts. Oh, there's that divided word. So the whole pie, you're going to divide it into 6 parts. And when you divide it into 6 parts, you get 240 calories. So this whole pie divided into 6 parts is 240 calories. If that's true, then if we solve this, we'll know how much the whole pie is. How many calories in the whole pie? That would be N. 8 is N. Number 10. When all the kids tried out for Little League, when all the kids who tried out for Little League were divided into teams of 20 players, there were exactly 8 teams. How many kids tried out? So there's a whole bunch of kids. We're going to divide them into teams of 20. So we're going to take all these kids, divide them into teams of 20, and that will give us, it gives us exactly, gives us exactly 8 teams. So if this is all true, the whole team divided by 20 players per team, the whole Little League divided by 20 players per team is 8 teams. Now we've set this up so this is true, and if we solve it, it'll tell us how many are in the whole team. X divided by 20 is 8. That would be M. Now you finish. Remember what I said in the beginning. We are not finishing this today. I've left my nut letters here because I don't have anything to write down here yet. I have to first solve them. We are not going to finish this today. All we are doing is finishing matching up the letters, matching up the equations with the word problems. When all of that is said and done, you do 1, 2, 3, 4 more of these where you match them up, and then you're finished for this time. Next time we'll come back and we'll solve them, and then we'll actually have all the answers.